You know, that right there, 1998 Mercury Mariner, one of the best motors that Mercury ever built as far as major issues or ongoing instances that cause problems. I am going to talk about a motor, and motors are totally different than this. I'm going to talk about Evinrudes. Yeah, I'm going to get in some trouble here. I'll be right back with some old school stories about how an Evinrude screwed up my life. I'm Dale Verts. Be right back. I said I get in trouble on this outboard talk. My buddy Glenn Sims down here at Lake the Ozarks, private mechanic, good mechanic, just loves his OMC motors. He's just crazy about them. We kind of, over the years, had that back and forth thing, Mercury versus OMC, whatever. I have no love for OMC Evinrude Johnson motors back in the day. But I'm going to talk about my personal experience. It's funny. It's like being Democrat or Republican. So many folks are a certain way because their dad was. Your dad loved OMC, you liked OMC. Your dad liked Mercury, you liked Mercury. It's kind of funny how people are. I got my second bass boat. I bought a used 87 Stratus 201 Pro. And that was the first year, I believe, of the full flipping deck of modern bass boats. Stratus come out with one of the first ones, and it was a really good boat. For a 20-footer, it wasn't like the old 20-footers. It was a little sports car. And it was way better than my 16.8 Champion I had. I love that little boat, but it was a cork. This thing here was a big boat. Boy, it was a fun boat to fish out of. The problem with Stratus was by that time, I think they were already owned by Evinrude, OMC, I believe at that time. Anyway, it had a 200 loop-charged Vindicator, whatever. Is that what they called that one? Evinrude. Love that. I'd take that boat again today, but that motor, not so much. So I bought this thing early, like February of '94. And I had plans that year, and I did fish the entire Redman, the Operation Bass Circuit. There's a Plains division by then. That means traveling from here in Missouri into Oklahoma. I don't think we fished Arkansas that year. But anyway, some driving, some traveling. And I had problems with that engine from the get-go. Now, a lot of problems you have with any specific engine is also your dealer or what have you. I can tell you I took that thing to 4 different people in a year and a half or so that I ran it. Well, that's part of the story, isn't it? Hey, y'all, SolarBad has a sale through September 8th. Their performance fishing glasses, like the RB2s, 20% off, 30% off on their shooting glasses or golf glasses or other sporting glasses. And for every $100 that you spend, you get a free $100 pair of their Solar Shield 2 glasses, which is really cool wrap around, like a rainy day run down the lake glass. And you get a free hard case too. That's through September 8th. Check it out in the description below, please. And here's a picture of those Shield 2s right here. That engine did everything wrong an engine can do, all the way to the ultimate. The boat was fairly quick for its size, and that's the only place the motor ever really run good. Most of the time was wide open. Back in those days, I wasn't afraid to run them wide open. I just had more money too, because they were thirsty. All the things that engine did to me that year. And I took it to people. I ended up putting a reed in it. I broke a reed. Didn't hurt the motor. Well, we didn't think it didn't look like it hurt anything. Started lean sneezing, but it would never idle. Or if it idled, it idled stupid. And like I say, maybe Glenn, my buddy, probably could have, well, he wasn't a mechanic hardly then, but he probably could have fixed it. However good a service people you have. I bought it from a dealership, but not from them. It was for sale by somebody else. And it supposedly, and I think it did have a brand new power head when I got it. It was an Arizona boat. an altitude boat. They brought it here in Missouri and they blew it up because jets are different. Altitude broke it. So it supposedly had a fresh power head. I broke it in like a fresh power head. And it, whatever it's worth. Compression was great. They checked compression. Everything was good on it. That thing idle, stupid, snort, sneeze, wheeze. Finally said I did to put a new reed block in it. It was having issues with reeds. That was mid-late summer that year, though. So you'd go to a tournament and you'd fight it. And when you're fighting a boat, it costs you fish. Couple examples, things that happened. Mark Twain Lake that year. Man, you would come off plane and go idle, and it would idle like, I don't know, 1,600, 1,500 RPM in gear. And you couldn't get out of gear. It's idling so fast that you couldn't physically yank it back out of gear. It would do that for a whole 50, 60 yards sometimes. And you got to where you shut down early, and because she'd be plowing along, finally come back where you get out of gear. I mean, I yanked kill switch before. Yanked the safety switch out to make the thing die. It wears on you fighting that stuff. We come into a little creek, Mark Twain. That was actually, August maybe that year. It was hot. And we come into the creek, and I shut down. She starts plowing, and I'm standing timber. And I can't get her stopped, and I hit a tree pretty good. And that tree was 40 foot tall above the water. My partner and I both looked up and watched the top of that tree break out, and here it come. Widowmakers, they call those. It hit right between us, in front of us, behind the casting deck, and 4 inches around it went thud. I mean, major hit. If it hit one of us, it'd been a bad deal. Man, I hated that motor. Smithville that year, it was June. It was the start of the largemouth bass fires, but I was catching, man, was I catching them. Not that it cost me a tournament or anything, but it cost me a good finish maybe. You always find excuses, right? I was catching a lot of fish, but I was fighting that motor. I practiced up there for 2 days, and when I drew my partner the night before at the meeting, I said, "Have you got a boat?" He goes, "Yeah, I've got a Ranger." I said, "I've got all the fish on the planet, but I'm fighting my boat." Now, Smithfield's 7,600 acre lake. Everywhere you look's fish. In fact, we had to make a big run. He said, "Yeah, my boat's ready to go." I said, "Cool." I said, "Well, I got plenty of fish." He didn't have nothing. We started off that morning, and his batteries were dead by 9 o'clock. Yeah, I've been meaning to replace those batteries. We ended up tying off to a stop on a hump, a place I'd found some fish, not the best place. We sat there for 3 hours. We both caught limits on that hump, and that's all. I think I had 15, 16 pounds. Not enough to do any good. It was an easy 20-pound day, maybe, whatever. The wind blew 1,000 miles an hour, by the way. You got to have batteries, y'all. And I let that boat cost me that day. It was my decision, but I let that happen to me because I did not trust my boat. How sad is that? I can change this camera how dark it is like that. Look at that. What the heck makes that happen? I got to figure this thing out. Look at that, how light it gets. And it gets dark again. I can even see that. What the heck is this thing? It must be made by OMC. That's what this camera was made by OMC. Now I know. So I had issues with this motor. Took it to 3 dealerships during that spring and summer. Replaced a reed. I don't remember anything else. What I did to it. And fishing Operation Bass and Redman, which at that time was the premier second-tier bass fishing organization in the country. It became MLF, or FLW, then MLF. Bunch of frickin' acronyms. Redman, man, it was great stuff. That matter of fact, that next year was their last year. So I had a decent year, not a great year, but I qualified for the regional at Kentucky Lake. And I remember going down there with trepidation. It's a long ways away. 5.5 hours, 6 hours from here. Huge tournament, very important, because back then, if you did whatever top 10 in the regional, I think there was 4 regions, you went to the Red Man All-American, which was Operation Bass's version of the Bassmasters Classic. You check, some of the best fishermen in the world have won the All-American. It's different now, of course, but everything else is too. So I went down to Kentucky Lake, practiced for a couple of 3 days a week before the tournament. Never been there before. Caught fish. I never got stomped on them, but I also was afraid to run a long ways. But I ended up fishing Lake Barkley and finding some fish over there that was a little bit bigger than the ones I found near the takeoff in Kentucky Lakeside. So next week, come tournament, I practice again a day or so, and I go out in the tournament first day, and I go to Kentucky Lake. I don't remember. It was a 12, 15-mile run to where I went, to a creek on the north end of Barkley. And you go in this creek, and when you got in there a little ways, there was a mud flat. And you probably could have run that mud flat. And looking back, I probably should have run it. But, you know, you had to tearing equipment up. I dove through it about 1.5 feet of water or so. 20-foot boat. Got an observer with me and all his stuff. And anyway, we made it through, and I stayed in that creek all day. I didn't go anywhere else because it was just a couple 100-yard stretch. And it wasn't very good. I beat out 3 keepers, 1 decent fish, and 2 just 14, 15-inch bass. And I don't remember what time it was, but it seemed like it was about 1 o'clock or so, because I had given myself time to fish down in Kentucky Lakeside. I had a little flat up there with those homemade stake brush piles. They hammer stakes in. Lakes being drawn down. I wanted to hit that spot for a little bit before I go in. And we get to that mud flat, and the water's down a bunch. And that mud flat, I can see it. And there ain't no getting through it. I guess looking back, maybe I could have, I don't remember what the rules was. Maybe that's why I get out and try to push my way across it. Oh, had my observer get on front with me, and we can't go nowhere. I'm pretty much stuck with the trolling motor. So like a dummy, and I had plenty of time. I panicked, whatever. I fired the big motor up and tried to blow my way through it. It just took a few seconds before the motor went overheat, plugging up with that silting mud. I trimmed the motor up and tried to clean it off. I didn't try to run it again. I remember I did not try to run it again. But I'm stuck. We sat there for a while. And I'm watching the clock. And it's getting bad. I'm stuck. No big deal. It got down to about 15 minutes of spare time, and all of a sudden we're floating again. I didn't come up on the front, got trail motor up high, motor out of the water, and we got off the mud flat. Perfect. 15 minutes or so to spare, I remember. Like a 20-minute run back, we had good time. Fire the motor up, and it won't come out of that slow mode. Overheat mode, it won't come out of it. Looking back, maybe unhooking the battery would have helped. I tried winging the motor in neutral, sometimes blow it out, and what it wasn't overheating anymore, but the slow system, the SLOW system, I know my buddy Glenn just shaking his head, what a dummy I was, but it wouldn't let me run. It goes into limp mode, and it wouldn't work. That was a bad few minutes there, y'all. Anyway, it finally come out of slow mode. And by then it was too late. And I was unhappy. I was like 10 minutes late back to the weigh-in. Lost my day's weight. And I ran pretty hard back then. I remember my partner was mad at me how hard I ran. But I was coming in with the second flight, guys. But it had been a long year and fighting that engine. When I got to the weigh-in area, the guy from the Okie division, really cool dude, Indian dude, Native American, I about killed him. He's on a riprap bank outside Kentucky Dam Marina there, and or Moores. It was the Moores. Anyway, whatever. See how I am? I about run over him on the bank. He said, man, I said, dude, I'm broke. He said, I know I'm late. I'm broke. I lost my... I restarted that motor 11 times to get back to the weigh-in area. Just, I don't know, 100 and something yards. Start it, put it in gear, die. Start it, put it in gear, stumble, die. Motor's broke. So, OMC was the sponsoring motor of Operation Bassin, Evinrude Johnson. And they had a service truck at the events. Good for me. Went to him, parked the boat. Partner was mad, he left. I got a whole other story to tell about that guy someday. It started before the tournament, whatever. I go up to the guy, and he's got 11 boats in front of me. 11. Out of, I don't know, 100? I don't know how many boats was there. 90? 11. Testimony to how great OMC really was. I know, Glenn, back off. He got to me that night like 7:30. I went and ate, worked on tackle. My buddy I took with me as an observer, because you had to bring an observer. We sat around, talked, worked on tackle. Talked about what I was going to do the next day if I could fish. And I remember the guy was really cool. He obviously good mechanicals. Tech guys that follow tournaments around. I've had a friend of mine did that with a FLW. They're great mechanics. I go back to him. He fires the motor up on a hose, and it sounds great. He said that was the worst he'd ever seen an engine ever and still run. There's a trigger issue nobody'd ever looked at, and I'd flung it around. Things like running 180 degrees out. Glenn probably tell me that can't happen, or maybe he'll tell me why it can happen. Well, just trying to run. He said, I think we got it figured out. He also put new plugs in it, and it's all no charge, even though it's no motor, which is part of the cool thing of having a tech service there. Anyway, the next day, the motor ran spectacular, better than it's ever run before. And I need to look it up. I really don't care. I never did look up what I did that day. I had a 5-pounder and several other keepers. I do know that combined with the 7 pounds or so I had the day before, I would have made the Redman All-American. See why I don't like Evinrude's or Johnson's? See what I'm talking about? But it gets better. So I blame the Evinrude for missing the Redman All-American. I think I can blame. I'm upset. Can you tell? I'm still upset. That was 1994, y'all. I fished hard that year. One of the best years I ever fished. In that middle 90s, I was tough. I was sharp. I was on it. Everything was about to fishing. Remember, Kevin Van Dam was coming on then, too, and I was thinking, man, I can keep up with him. I got to do this. Whatever. I came home from that tournament and quit. I went turkey hunting the day after I come home. Turkey season was open that fall. I deer hunted. I did not run that boat again, I don't believe, the rest of the year. I pickled it, winterized it, and put it away. So the next spring, I went to work for the dealership where I bought that boat from. And they promoted a Pro-Am tournament circuit. So next spring, I fished the first tournament like the third week of March. Whatever, it's March. Like the Ozarks. Pull the boat out, go through everything, batteries, everything. Actually, I do the bearings. Everything was done that winter. And no practice at all. Went down and won the tournament. We had 23, almost 24 pounds that day. Fished good. I fished great. Motor run perfect. Motor run spectacularly good. We ran, oh golly, 50, 60 miles that day. Good, right? No, Not good. The next weekend was the Redman tournament, the 96 Redman tournament, opening on Lake of the Ozarks, and I felt pretty good about things. I'm going to catch me some fish. To do, end of March, but I did. Drove down Lake of the Ozarks, splashed the boat, and was going to practice about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Just go check a few things out close by, because we caught some fish close by the week before. Put the boat on plane, went up lake by a mile and a half, and blew that motor all to hell. Pickled it good the year before, putting it away, good gas, and that motor just exploded. It detonated. I mean, melted a piston. I remember when it come off plane, it went kerclunk, and water come over the back deck. I went up and got in the front deck. Back then I used a hand control trolling motor, and I put that trolling motor all the way down the water. I sat on the front deck and run the motor like cross-legged in the front deck, going back in, and it's Saturday evening on Lake of the Ozarks, even that time of year, there's boats everywhere, water splashing over the front, hitting me. And two guys, tournament guys, stopped that I knew, and one of them wanted to tow in. I said, nope, I'm fine. I'm going to suffer my way back in. Through the main lake, Grand Glades, Lake of the Ozarks. Luckily it wasn't July, I would have drowned. Blew that motor up. Fish tournament next day as a no-boater. Partner didn't want to go nowhere. Didn't catch a fish. And I think that was my last Redman tournament. I believe. I was so burnt out. I got home and told my wife what happened. Because I was the ultimate confidence going into this thing. I was going to catch them. She said if I ever have another Evinrude outboard, that she'd leave me. She never left me. That's my story. Every company has their lemon motors, has their issues. So I say that Mariner I have, it's a Mercury. You know that, right? It's a good one. They have very few issues with those motors. And I may blow it up next time too, but it's lived a good life, and it's on its second power head. First one lasted 22, 23 years. That's pretty good. OMC had their VRO, their variable ratio oiling, the most ridiculous oiling system on the planet. I'll argue that to anybody. This one's gear driven, can still cause issues, but Mercury, I'll take any day. I've had a Yamaha, brand new Yamaha 97, great motor. The whole thing we always said about Yamahas, when they finally blew up, there's no doubt, you can see plumb through the block. Yamahas were great motors over the years. I hear nothing but good about these Suzukis. I see a lot of Suzuki repowers are everywhere. Old fishing boats, bass boats, pontoon boats getting Suzuki motors. OMC, the Outboard Marine Corporation. Then they come out with the fixed motors, put a U in place of the I, and you got what those motors were. Yeah, Glenn, I know. Now, my buddy Glenn, he likes the old flat top, the old crossflow motors. Sunk are getting ready to come apart, low RPM, last forever motors to keep your gas in and get rid of that stupid VRO. Last forever. That's ones he likes. He knows. He's a smart man. I'm done. I want to tell you all my story about Evinrude motors. How much I loved them. No, I hated them. Now my little 15 horse just sold it last week on my John boat. That's a good little motor. Can't hurt that motor. You can sure hurt them big ones. I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else and do something else. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching my Evinrude story. Bye, Glenn.